The galaxy had grown complacent, wrapped in its own sense of superiority, certain that humanity was a minor player unworthy of serious consideration, while treaties and agreements that should have guaranteed peace were treated as optional, bureaucratic formalities to be exploited or ignored at will, and in the cold, sterile halls of the Solar Alliance Council, diplomats debated endlessly over meaningless protocols while fleets of alien warships began maneuvering in the outer systems bordering human space, confident that Earth would not respond beyond sending polite warnings or token patrols, for the prevailing belief was that humans were soft, predictable, and technologically inferior, a species that could be coerced into submission or sidelined without consequence. Yet beneath the surface of this perceived fragility lay centuries of preparation, a quiet, relentless accumulation of knowledge, technology, and tactical genius that no external observer had ever truly measured, from clandestine research stations hidden in distant star systems to the advanced shipyards orbiting uncharted asteroids, where engineers and scientists, some of whom trace their lineage back to the earliest days of interstellar expansion, had been perfecting systems of propulsion, energy manipulation, and defense that rivaled anything in the galaxy. And now, as emissaries from the Vorath collective arrived on the fringes of human space with demands thinly veiled as diplomatic formalities, the human leaders, having watched and waited for the precise moment, recognized that the balance of power had shifted irreversibly, and that patience, not aggression, had been their greatest weapon, for they had allowed the aliens to underestimate them, to stretch their arrogance to the breaking point, and in the command centers scattered across the solar system, admirals like Chen and strategists like Elias surveyed the holographic projections of approaching enemy fleets with calm, precise calculations, aware that every sensor reading, every missile trajectory, and every potential weak point had been anticipated, and when the first communication from the Vorath collective arrived, dripping with condescension and veiled threats demanding immediate submission to human jurisdiction, Chen's lips curved into a quiet smile, for she knew that the treaties designed to restrain humanity had always been a shield to lull aggressors into a false sense of security, a trap of legality, that now allowed humanity to respond on its own terms, and as they input the final coordinates of the deployment of a hidden defensive array that would simultaneously blind enemy sensors, disrupt their energy conduits, and leave them vulnerable to precision strikes, the wider galactic community, blissfully unaware, continued to monitor human compliance, interpreting routine troop movements as routine compliance, never suspecting that every maneuver was a carefully orchestrated step in a plan that would shake the foundations of multiple empires, for the humans understood that direct confrontation was only the beginning, that psychological dominance and strategic ingenuity could be as devastating as firepower, and so, as the alien warships crept closer, confident in their superiority and the weakness of the Solar Alliance, humanity struck first not with chaos but with precision, unleashing electronic countermeasures that caused entire squadrons to lose cohesion, weapon systems to misfire, and communications to collapse in waves, creating confusion and panic among forces that had expected compliance and met instead with methodical, calculated resistance, and as the initial volleys of human-built plasma torpedoes cut swaths through alien frigates with terrifying efficiency, the commanders of those empires began to realize that their treaties, meant to bind humans peacefully, had only delayed the inevitable revelation of humanity's capabilities, and as Chen watched the first Vorath cruiser explode in control fury, scattering debris across the void in a silent testament to precision and planning, she knew that this was only the opening act, that humanity's response was measured but unstoppable, designed to break the arrogance of those who had thought themselves untouchable, and while alien leaders scrambled to understand the disaster unfolding before them, the humans coordinated evacuations of colonies at risk, protected neutral systems, and launched counteroffensive that blended diplomacy with unstoppable force, demonstrating that treaties broken by others would not restrain humans, and that empires that had relied on intimidation and underestimation would face consequences far beyond anything they had imagined, as the Solar Alliance fleet, once dismissed as insufficient, moved with deadly harmony through the chaos, proving that humanity had not only learned the arts of war but had mastered patience, strategy, and the power of surprise, leaving the galaxy to watch in stunned silence as a species long underestimated revealed that treaties could be broken, empires could be shaken, and humanity would not merely survive but strike back with a force that no council, no treaty, and no arrogance could contain, heralding the beginning of a new era where the humans would dictate terms not through fear alone, but through the undeniable demonstration that their resilience, ingenuity, and will were forces beyond calculation. And as the first day of conflict drew to a close, alien worlds burned with the realization that the Solar Alliance had never been the weak link they assumed, and that the humans were poised to turn every underestimation into a catastrophic miscalculation that would echo across the stars for generations. In the aftermath of the opening strikes, the Vorath Collective's leadership was plunged into chaos, their councils fractured as generals argued over the unexpected human tactics, each one revealing that their intelligence had consistently underestimated not just the Solar Alliance's military capabilities, but the depth of human strategic thinking, while across multiple star systems. The ripple effects of humanity's sudden assertiveness began to destabilize fragile alliances that had relied on the assumption that humans would remain passive observers, and as the Solar Alliance's fleet executed rapid redeployments, shifting between defensive postures to calculated offensives, human commanders demonstrated a capacity for improvisation that left alien observers scrambling to decode patterns they assumed were rigid and predictable, and yet for all the destruction and tactical brilliance displayed, the humans maintained a discipline that prioritized civilian protection, establishing secure corridors for fleeing populations, coordinating supply drops to embattled colonies, and ensuring that even the most aggressive counterattacks did not devolve into indiscriminate slaughter, showcasing not only technological superiority but moral and ethical clarity. And as news of these operations reached the broader galactic media networks, whispers of awe and disbelief spread among species who had long believed the Solar Alliance insignificant, alien commentators questioning how a species that had been so casually dismissed could coordinate such rapid, decisive action across multiple systems, revealing that humans were not merely fighters but thinkers, planners, and protectors capable of integrating intelligence, empathy, and tactical efficiency into a seamless whole. And amid the confusion, humanity's secretive technological program continued to manifest devastatingly. From stealth ships that could evade entire fleets, to energy manipulators capable of creating temporary spatial distortions that rendered enemy weapons useless, to automated defense grids that could analyze and adapt to alien strategies in real time, and as Vorath commanders attempted to recalibrate, they realized that every standard doctrine they relied upon had been rendered obsolete by humans who thought several steps ahead, anticipating responses not with brute force alone but with psychological insight, understanding the fears, arrogance, and pride of their opponents and exploiting them with precision, while the human leadership, operating from command hubs cloaked and shielded beyond detection, coordinated simultaneous interventions across contested sectors, liberating colonies that had been subjugated, disabling orbital weapon platforms designed to dominate civilian populations, and, when necessary, engaging enemy forces with surgical strikes that left fleets in disarray without causing unnecessary collateral damage, demonstrating a mastery of war that was both ruthless and restrained, calculated, and humane. And as weeks turned into months, the initial shock of the Vorath defeat evolved into widespread fear, their subordinates hesitating to act, councils arguing, and allied empires reconsidering previously held assumptions about human capabilities, all while humanity continued to expand its influence subtly, stabilizing regions that had been unstable for decades, showing that their power was not only destructive but constructive, that their strategic vision included more than retaliation. It encompassed a protection and uplift of systems that others had abandoned, and as the first counteroffensive by a coalition of alien empires began, expecting humanity to respond predictably, they were met with a coordinated strike that simultaneously defended key systems, disrupted supply lines, and crippled command hubs, leaving multiple fleets inoperative, forcing alien commanders to realize that humans could adapt, anticipate, and manipulate events across light years with an almost prescient awareness. And in the midst of all this, individuals like Admiral Chen and strategist Elias became symbols not just of tactical brilliance but of the human capacity to endure and improvise under pressure, their decisions blending centuries of accumulated knowledge, simulations, and instinct into actions that confounded enemies while inspiring allies. And as the galaxy watched, species that had once dismissed Earth now recognized that humanity was Not only a force to be reckoned with, but a civilization whose patience, intelligence, and moral compass made it uniquely formidable, capable of turning treaties broken against them into tools of strategic advantage, and empires that had once stood unshakable now reconsidered every previous interaction with humans, realizing that the mistakes of underestimation could no longer be recovered. That the galaxy had entered an era defined not by alien supremacy, but by the undeniable rise of humanity. Striking back with precision, insight, and a relentless drive to protect what they considered just, all while leaving a trail of disrupted empires, liberated worlds, and stunned civilizations questioning the nature of power itself. As the months of conflict unfolded, humanity's influence expanded not through mere conquest, but through a demonstration of ingenuity and resilience that left entire alien civilizations scrambling to adjust, with the Sol Alliance employing advanced communication networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across light years, enabling fleets to operate in near-perfect synchrony despite the vast distances involved. While human engineers unveiled technological marvels that combined speed, defense, and offensive capability in ways previously thought impossible, such as adaptive shields that could reroute incoming energy blasts, gravitic projectors that manipulated battlefield terrain on a stellar scale, and modular warships that could reconfigure themselves mid-combat to respond to shifting threats. And as the Vorath Collective and their allies attempted to regroup, they were consistently outmaneuvered, their standard tactical doctrines failing against opponents who could anticipate, innovate, and strike with both precision and restraint. And amid the chaos of war, humanity also revealed a side that alien observers had not expected, a willingness to protect not only themselves but weaker species caught in the crossfire, evacuating colonies under siege, offering safe passage to refugees, and in some cases, providing technology and training that allowed entire civilizations to resist oppression independently, thereby earning a reluctant respect even from enemies. And while the Sol Alliance fleet struck hard when necessary, they also employed misdirection and feints with masterful timing, creating the illusion of vulnerability to lure alien commanders into traps that exploited their own overconfidence. And as the first major coalition fleet, comprised of Vorath, Dravani, and Arkelian ships, entered contested space expecting a straightforward engagement, they found themselves caught in a web of human strategy that isolated their vessels, disrupted their communications, and allowed precision strikes to dismantle entire squadrons without human casualties, leaving the coalition's command in shock as they realized that humans had turned the very concept of warfare into an art form that blended science, psychology, and moral calculation. And throughout these operations, leadership figures like Chen navigated political tensions within the Sol Alliance itself, ensuring that internal dissent and the pressures of extended warfare did not compromise the overall strategy, while Elias coordinated intelligence gathering and predictive modeling, combining centuries of human data with adaptive algorithms that could forecast enemy movements and adjust plans in real time, creating a feedback loop of efficiency and foresight unmatched by any alien intelligence. And as these campaigns continued, the galaxy began to witness a fundamental shift in perception. Humans were no longer the underestimated species. They were the standard, against which others measured strategy, courage, and ingenuity, and treaties, once considered binding instruments, were revealed to be nothing more than temporary pauses in a galaxy that had underestimated the consequences of human restraint. For every delay allowed humans to prepare, innovate, and expand their reach, turning patience into a weapon as deadly as any fleet or superweapon. And in the midst of this escalation, a series of diplomatic incidents unfolded as minor powers, inspired by human success, began defecting from their alliances, weakening traditional power blocks and forcing empires to reconsider their positions, while humans carefully navigated these developments with a combination of firm negotiation, protective action, and subtle influence, establishing a web of trust, loyalty, and interdependence that allowed humanity to project power without direct confrontation in every instance. And when the Vorath leadership finally attempted to enforce a decisive engagement, through overwhelming force, they were met with a human counteroffensive so precise, so adaptive, that entire sectors fell under temporary human control before the aliens could even comprehend the scale of their miscalculation. And in these moments, it became evident that humanity had mastered not only the tools of war but the orchestration of conflict itself, blending strategy, technology, ethics, and foresight into a seamless operation that shattered assumptions, redefined interstellar balance, and proved to the galaxy that the Solar Alliance was capable of striking back with a force that would echo across generations, leaving no empire unshaken, no treaty untested, and no observer unconvinced that humanity had arrived not as a minor player, but as a civilization whose brilliance, patience, and unyielding resolve had rewritten the rules of engagement in the stars. The unfolding campaigns had begun to fundamentally reshape the political and military landscape of the galaxy as humans, through a combination of audacious strikes and meticulous planning, forced once complacent empires to rethink every aspect of their strategy, and across dozens of star systems, the effect of humanity's coordinated offensives reverberated through the ranks of alien bureaucracies, military councils, and intelligence networks, causing paralysis and infighting as commanders who had relied on predictability now faced the unpredictable brilliance of human ingenuity, and while the Solar Alliance fleet moved with unprecedented cohesion, employing multi-vector attacks that leveraged speed, precision, and adaptive defenses, human strategists simultaneously worked behind the scenes to manipulate the perceptions of their adversaries, seeding misinformation and exploiting the arrogance that had long defined galactic diplomacy, creating openings that allowed humans to neutralize key threats without unnecessary bloodshed. And as Chen directed the engagement of a Dravani armada attempting to secure a strategic wormhole, she coordinated simultaneous diversionary attacks that forced the enemy to scatter, while human stealth frigates disabled critical communications and sensor arrays, allowing main fleet units to strike decisively against isolated elements, demonstrating a level of tactical synchronization that no alien intelligence could fully comprehend. And amid these operations, Elias oversaw the deployment of experimental defense systems capable of reconfiguring in response to alien maneuvers, ensuring that human forces remained resilient even when encountering the most sophisticated attacks, while simultaneously monitoring civilian safety, evacuation routes, and supply chains across multiple colonies, proving that human strategy was never solely about destruction, but about the preservation and empowerment of those under threat. And as the first alien attempts at negotiation surfaced, hoping to exploit perceived weakness, humans responded with a combination of firmness and diplomacy, setting conditions that reaffirmed the Solar Alliance's dominance while extending protection to neutral and vulnerable species, further destabilizing alliances that had assumed humanity would act purely in self-interest. And as news of these actions spread through the galaxy, whispers of fear and astonishment emerged among species that had once dismissed Earth, while scholars, military analysts, and diplomats scrambled to understand how a civilization long considered minor could so thoroughly control the tempo of interstellar conflict, and at the same time, humans revealed another layer of sophistication, the ability to integrate intelligence from rescued alien colonies into their operational networks, using insights into enemy technology, tactics, and culture to anticipate future movements, a dynamic that compounded the difficulty for Vorath commanders attempting to respond effectively, and as the coalition fleets launched renewed offensives, expecting predictable human countermeasures, they were consistently confounded, encountering adaptive defenses, coordinated strikes across multiple theaters, and surprise deployments of units previously thought impossible to project at such speed and range, while human engineers continued to unveil technological innovations that blurred the line between offense and defense, from energy redirection grids that turned enemy fire back upon their own ships, to automated strike drones capable of independent tactical assessment. And as human operations grew in complexity and reach, the psychological impact on alien commanders became increasingly evident, with hesitation, indecision, and infighting replacing previously confident directives, eroding morale across entire fleets, while the humans continued to press the advantage, liberating star systems under occupation, neutralizing oppressive regimes aligned with hostile powers, and demonstrating that strategic patience combined with decisive action could achieve more than brute force alone. And as the Solar Alliance expanded its influence, integrating liberated systems into cooperative frameworks, offering protection, infrastructure, and shared knowledge, the galaxy began to recognize that humanity's rise was not fueled merely by military power, but by an unparalleled combination of intelligence, ethics, and foresight. A civilization capable of simultaneously defending itself, empowering allies, and destabilizing aggressors, turning treaties broken by others into opportunities for advantage, and ensuring that every empire, no matter how powerful, would now measure their decisions against a cautionary tale of underestimating humans. For the galaxy had witnessed a species that struck back with precision, foresight, and relentless determination, reshaping power dynamics, challenging assumptions, and proving beyond doubt that the Solar Alliance would not merely survive aggression. It would dominate the narrative of interstellar conflict through a mastery of strategy, innovation, and moral resolve that left entire civilizations questioning what they had believed to be true for centuries. As the war escalated into its second year, humanity's reach extended across previously uncharted sectors, transforming the conflict from a localized series of engagements into a galaxy-wide demonstration of strategic brilliance and operational mastery, with the Solar Alliance fleet operating as a cohesive organism where each vessel, squadron, and command hub functioned in perfect synchrony, coordinated through predictive algorithms developed over decades that allowed humans to anticipate enemy movements and reactions with uncanny accuracy, and as alien civilizations scrambled to respond, they were confronted not only by human technological superiority but by an adaptive tactical mindset that rendered traditional doctrines ineffective, while humans continued to integrate rescued alien populations into logistical networks, training and equipping them to contribute to both defensive and offensive operations, turning previously passive or oppressed systems into active participants in the conflict, amplifying human influence and demonstrating that the Solar Alliance's power extended beyond sheer firepower into the realms of diplomacy, coordination, and moral leadership. And amid this, Admiral Chen directed multi-front engagements with surgical precision, deploying stealth units to disrupt command channels, using decoy formations to lure enemy fleets into traps, and coordinating orbital bombardments that incapacitated key installations without unnecessary destruction, while strategist Elias oversaw intelligence gathering that incorporated intercepted communications, cultural analysis, and battlefield telemetry into a predictive model that allowed humans to respond to contingencies before alien commanders even recognized them. And as a coalition of Vorath, Dravani, and Arkelian forces attempted a coordinated strike to regain initiative, they found themselves systematically outmaneuvered, encountering overlapping fields of defense, adaptive countermeasures, and simultaneous human offensives across multiple theaters that forced retreat after retreat, eroding morale and sowing discord among allies who had assumed that the Solar Alliance's capabilities were limited by distance, resources, or political constraints. And as the first alien delegations attempted diplomatic negotiations, hoping to salvage their positions through appeals to reason, humans responded with a mix of firmness and strategic generosity, offering protection to neutral systems while maintaining the upper hand, demonstrating that strength combined with ethical clarity could achieve outcomes impossible through force alone. And within the Solar Alliance itself, internal cohesion was maintained through transparent communication, shared objectives, and an unwavering commitment to protection of human and allied populations, ensuring that the extended conflict did not erode morale or efficiency, while simultaneously projecting power that reinforced humanity's reputation across the galaxy. And as humans liberated occupied colonies, repaired critical infrastructure, and integrated new technologies gleaned from both recovered alien systems and human innovation, the Vorath and their allies confronted a reality they had never imagined. Humanity's patience, discipline, and foresight allowed them to strike decisively while preserving their moral and operational integrity, destabilizing traditional power hierarchies and forcing entire empires to reconsider long-held assumptions about the limits of human capability. And as the year drew to a close, the galaxy bore witness to an emerging truth. Treaties broken by alien arrogance had triggered not collapse, but a calculated human response that combined precision, ethics, and innovation, shattering assumptions and redefining what it meant to wield power. And while alien leaders debated their next steps in fear and confusion, humanity prepared the next phase of operations, not with haste or desperation, but with deliberate, measured strategy designed to consolidate gains, protect allies, and ensure that any further aggression would meet a response that was both unstoppable and morally indisputable, proving that the Solar Alliance's rise was neither accidental nor reactive, but the result of centuries of preparation, resilience, and mastery of conflict, and leaving the galaxy to recognize that humans did not merely fight to survive. They fought to assert a new order, one where empires would be shaken, treaties respected or leveraged strategically, and humanity's will, intellect, and foresight would define the future of interstellar relations for generations to come. With multiple alien empires now reeling from the precise, coordinated offensives of the Solar Alliance, humanity began to demonstrate that their power extended beyond the battlefield into the strategic, political, and technological domains, leveraging victories to secure long-term stability for liberated systems while simultaneously dismantling the infrastructure of hostile coalitions. And as Vorath, Dravani, and Arkelian leadership struggled to regain control, they faced not just human firepower, but a civilization that had mastered the integration of intelligence, prediction, and psychological strategy, turning alien arrogance into vulnerability at every turn. While human engineers continue to deploy unprecedented innovations, from adaptive energy shielding capable of withstanding concentrated fleet assaults, to gravity manipulation platforms that could alter orbital trajectories and disable enemy warships without direct confrontation. And throughout these operations, human commanders like Chen orchestrated multi-theater campaigns with flawless precision, synchronizing fleet movements across sectors, coordinating planetary defenses, and exploiting enemy weaknesses with a combination of patience and ruthlessness, while strategist Elias used predictive modeling to anticipate enemy behavior, create contingencies for unforeseen actions, and guide the deployment of resources where they could have maximal effect, all of which compounded the difficulty for alien forces attempting to regain initiative. And as liberated colonies integrated into the Solar Alliance, sharing resources, intelligence, and manpower, humans created a coalition of allies whose loyalty was reinforced not by coercion but by protection, trust, and mutual benefit, amplifying Solar Alliance strength beyond what any single empire had anticipated. And amid these developments, alien commanders realized that their previous assumptions about human civilization were catastrophically flawed. They were not a reactive species but proactive planners, capable of long-term strategic thinking that integrated ethics, foresight, and operational excellence. And as humans continued to expand influence while minimizing unnecessary destruction, the psychological impact on enemy forces became increasingly severe, with hesitation, indecision, and infighting eroding morale, leaving coalition fleets vulnerable to precisely calculated strikes, ambushes, and blockades that further reinforced the human reputation for mastery of war, diplomacy, and interstellar governance. And in parallel, humanity's approach to negotiation, alliance building, and protection of weaker species created a network of influence that not only stabilized previously unstable sectors, but challenged traditional notions of power, forcing the galaxy to acknowledge that humans had transformed the nature of interstellar conflict by combining intellect, foresight, and moral authority with overwhelming technological and tactical capability. And as the alien leadership attempted desperate countermeasures, they found themselves repeatedly outmaneuvered, encountering human forces that could strike decisively across multiple systems while simultaneously maintaining protective operations for civilians, liberated colonies, and neutral worlds, demonstrating that humanity's strength lay not just in military might but in the disciplined application of knowledge, ethics, and strategy. And as victories mounted, the cumulative effect of coordinated human actions reshape alliances, weaken adversaries, and set the stage for a definitive conclusion, proving that the Solar Alliance could not merely survive aggression but could assert dominance while redefining the rules of engagement. And as a final phase of coordinated offensive was planned, with fleets poised to deliver decisive blows while protecting every ally and civilian population, it became clear that humanity had achieved a level of strategic mastery that no alien civilization could match, leaving the galaxy to witness a species that had been underestimated for centuries rise to unprecedented influence, not through arrogance, but through preparation, patience, ingenuity, and the unshakable will to strike back against those who had dared to ignore treaties, challenge their sovereignty, and underestimate their capability, proving unequivocally that humanity was now the defining force in the interstellar order. As humanity entered the final phase of its coordinated campaigns, the galaxy watched in stunned silence, alien civilizations unable to comprehend how a species they had dismissed as weak, disorganized, and predictable had orchestrated a series of operations that dismantled entire fleets, liberated occupied systems, and reshaped alliances with surgical precision, and across multiple sectors. Human forces moved with a level of coordination that blurred the lines between strategy, technology, and foresight, while liberated colonies integrated seamlessly into the Solar Alliance, offering intelligence, resources, and manpower that amplified human capabilities even further, creating a force multiplier that no alien coalition could match. And as Vorath, Dravani, and Arkelian leaders convened in desperation, They realized that the treaties they had ignored or broken had been nothing more than temporary pauses in a timeline carefully manipulated by humans, whose patience had been weaponized, and whose restraint had lulled them into overconfidence, while Admiral Chen directed final engagements with meticulous care, deploying stealth units in neutralized command hubs, adaptive fleets to intercept reinforcements, and precision strikes to dismantle orbital weapon platforms, all while ensuring minimal collateral damage to civilians and allied systems, and strategist Elias, using the cumulative intelligence gathered over the years, anticipated every potential reaction, adjusting plans in real time and leaving alien commanders consistently one step behind, forced into reactive decisions that only compounded their losses. And as humans executed the culmination of decades of preparation, they revealed technologies and tactics that have remained hidden until a decisive moment, from warp-capable capital ships capable of instantaneous repositioning, to energy grid disruptors that rendered entire fleets helpless, to automated defense and attack systems that functioned autonomously yet seamlessly integrated into the broader human strategy, demonstrating mastery that combined intellect, foresight, and operational efficiency in a manner no alien mind had fully comprehended. And while the galaxy reeled from the rapid unraveling of once powerful coalitions, humanity simultaneously consolidated its influence, securing liberated sectors, offering protection and governance to vulnerable civilizations, and negotiating alliances from a position of undeniable strength, ensuring that the lessons of the conflict would reverberate for generations. And as the final alien fleets were neutralized, with leaders forced to acknowledge their catastrophic miscalculations, the Sol Alliance emerged not only victorious but morally and strategically vindicated, having demonstrated that strength tempered with ethics, patience combined with foresight, and ingenuity paired with decisiveness could redefine the balance of power across the stars. And as Chen surveyed the remnants of enemy forces, liberated colonies, and stabilized sectors, she recognized that humanity's triumph was more than military. It was a testament to resilience, adaptability, and the unyielding drive to protect, preserve, and prevail. And across the galaxy, the message was clear. Treaties broken by others would no longer constrain humans. Empires built on arrogance would no longer stand unshaken. And any civilization that underestimated humanity would face consequences beyond imagination. For the Sol Alliance had struck back not as a reactionary force, but as a species that had mastered the art of war, diplomacy, and governance to such an extent that the very rules of interstellar engagement had been rewritten, leaving the galaxy forever altered, empires humbled, and humanity recognized not merely as survivors of circumstance, but as architects of destiny, the defining civilization of their era, whose patience, ingenuity, and will have proven unstoppable, reshaping the cosmos and ensuring that from this moment forward, no species, no empire, and no council would ever again underestimate the boundless potential of humanity.